Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Witold Sulimirski. I'm the chairman of the board of the Kościuszko Foundation, and I wish to welcome you warmly and thank Professor Mickiel for having arranged this first event of the symposium at the Kościuszko Foundation. Just to tell you a few words about the foundation, of which you can well imagine we are very proud, at least of the building. It was established in 1925 by an immigrant from Poland, Professor Mierzwa, who was the son of a large peasant, or at least farmer's family outside Łańcut, Rykszawa. And at the age of 18, in 1912, I believe, he emigrated to the United States, to the chagrin of his father, who wanted him to take over the farm. They had some connections in Massachusetts, and he ended up in Massachusetts, learned English. There was a Polish high school where he also learned some English, and he managed to get into Harvard, which was quite an accomplishment in those years. After graduating from Harvard, I do believe he finally got an, did he get an MBA or a doctorate at Harvard? One? A doctorate at Harvard. And he taught economics thereafter at Drake University. However, in the meantime, Poland became a country again, and he decided to do something for others like him who want to come to the United States from Poland to study. And first he established a scholarship committee with the help of the Polish embassy in Washington. And thereafter, he decided to establish a foundation, and he managed to bring into that enterprise 6 very prominent Americans. He obviously must have been a tremendous personality and salesman. And for the first, until basically World War II, all the board members were prominent Americans, including one who is very prominent in Poland, Mr. Fauntleroy, who was who led the Kościuszko squadron for Poland against the war with the Bolsheviks, which was also quite an achievement to get them into this enterprise. It was decided to name the new foundation after Kościuszko as a living monument to him. And maybe on the way out, if you haven't done so, the Daughters of the American Revolution, a very august group of wealthy ladies, recently managed to had a plaque made, and there was a magnificent ceremony when it was attached to the wall and inaugurated. Sort of a side story I won't bother you with, but there was a big argument whether Kościuszko was a brigadier general or a brevet brigadier, which is a temporary brigadier, but they decided finally to give him the brigadier general rank. What does the Kościuszko Foundation do? We have 2 missions since day one. Scholarly and scholarship exchanges with Poland, between the US and Poland, and the promotion of Poland and knowledge about its culture and projection of its culture in the United States. That mission has not changed. We have a endowment of about $25 million, and we give annually. We just had a meeting of the board last week, and we allocated about $900,000 to the scholarship program. The most important aspect of that program for most of you here is the fact that we bring in some 30, 32, 35, depends on the year and the availability of funds, Polish scholars. We finance or help finance 7 Polish programs at American universities, the most important one being the one at Columbia University. We also bring the from Poland only doctoral or postdoctoral individuals. We do have 2 commissions, one here, one in Poland, but they meet finally in Poland to make selections. We had about 60 plus candidates, and the 2 commissions, the Polish one and the American one, do an excellent, diligent job. We also have a program for Americans to go to Poland to study a year abroad or other periods of time, plus about 100 young people over the age of 18, mainly college students, go under our auspices to Poland during the summer. And some of them receive supplementary help, financial help. Others pay on their own. And additionally, we have a large program for about the same number for Americans of Polish descent in the or also Americans not of Polish descent who wish to study or are interested in Polish culture. Additionally, turning to our other mission, we have a major cultural aspect. I can't remember how often it is, but every 2 weeks, I believe, the WQXR, the classical music radio, very highly regarded, airs concerts from this hall. We also subsidize various festivals, like next week will be a festival of Polish films, and we did also the Chicago Film Festival. We do that for various organizations, and we also have two major musical competition, a Chopin competition for young people and a voice competition. So that takes up all our time, and we only have a staff of 12 or 13 people, which does a tremendous job. One of the fundraisers, which we also had last week, was the annual ball, the 72nd annual ball at the Waldorf Astoria, which is our not only major fundraiser, but it also gives us visibility among Polish Americans. So I'm sorry if I took some time, but I'm very proud of this place. I've been on the board for, I can't remember, it's over 30 years, I think. Yes, over 30 years. And I'm happy that I've seen it grow, and it's a really stable and very, very useful organization. I hope it will continue that way. And I do wish you a pleasant evening. And I guess it is Ms. Professor Mitskill's turn to say a few words. Thank you very much. One thing I didn't really mention, we've been endeavoring together with Professor Mitskill to establish a chair of Polish studies. We're having a tough time raising the money which is required. But in the meantime, we have, together with the Polish Senate, established a, what is the official name? The Kościuszko Semper Polonia Foundation.
Distinguished Visiting Professorship in Polish Studies.
That was sort of a temporary bridge until such time as we managed to, or at least the university manages to fund a endowed chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Witold. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the palace of the Kościuszko Foundation. It is always a pleasure to be here, particularly when we're doing an event that is sponsored by Columbia University with our friends here at the foundation. The topic, as you know, is German-Polish reconciliation, and there's a lot to talk about. We have, we think, a very high-powered team of scholars from both countries here to tackle 4 topics and in general get into the meat of what happened to the Polish-German relationship in the last few years. It was not so long ago that Professor Geremek was touring the world and saying that Poland never had such a good situation as it had in the mid-1990s when he was foreign minister. And Poland found itself surrounded with 7 new neighbors with whom it had excellent relations. With the advent of the well-known changes in Central Europe in 1989, the relationship between Poland and Germany changed from that of Cold War adversaries to one of strategic partnership. German politicians referred to Poland as our France in the East and hoped for the sort of political reconciliation that had ensued between Germany and France following World War II. Polish politicians saw in Germany their best advocate for accession into the European Union, and indeed, particularly after Poland entered NATO, relations between the 2 countries were remarkable. A new appreciation for the culture and history of the other arose, and new institutions of mutual cooperation were established, and with the signing of the Border Treaty of 1990 and the Treaty on Good Neighborliness and Friendly Cooperation in June of 1991, the path to reconciliation seemed assured. Polish President Kwaśniewski at one point said that after a meeting with German politicians, that Polish-German relations were so good that they had almost become boring. However, good relations between the elites were very good. The reality was a little bit different. Prejudices, not to mention certain legal and political problems, remained. For example, an asymmetry in the treatment of national minorities. And the situation deteriorated with the advent of a dispute over the expulsion of the Germans from new Polish territory after World War II. Differences in foreign policy toward the United States, the war on terror, toward relations with Belarus and Russia, increased with the advent of new political leadership in both countries, in Poland and in Germany. This conference aims to address these and other issues in 2 days of presentations and discussions. Academics, diplomats, and journalists will examine how each country deals with its communist past, views Russia and makes Ostpolitik, deals with the myriad problems lying at the nexus of memory, history, and politics, and sees its own place in Europe and that of its neighbors as Europe integrates. The sessions, of course, take place today and tomorrow, and we're hoping that we have an audience, but since we know better than anybody how difficult it is on a sunny May day to attract people, we're taping this. So you will have a chance to see this on the internet after a few weeks. Now I would like to invite our 2 speakers to do what they're supposed to do this evening, and I think I'll begin by introducing them both and then asking Mr. Meckel to make the first statement. Our speakers this evening are Markus Meckel, who is a well-known German politician from the SPD. Mr. Meckel has a very interesting biography because he's a Lutheran pastor. He's gone through a seminary. He was active before the changes, excuse me, in 1989, and in fact was the last foreign minister of East Germany. Became a member of the Bundestag, I believe, in 1990, and has stayed in the Bundestag in a variety of positions, working most recently with the Foreign Policy Commission, or committee, I'm sorry, and a couple of other august bodies within the Bundestag. He's quite well known in Poland, and that's why we thought he would be a good person to invite to speak here. Our second speaker this evening is my friend Paweł Zaleski, whom I've known for quite a while. Mr. Zaleski is a sociologist. He is a member of the Law and Justice Party. Like Mr. Meckel, he entered politics after the changes rather quickly and was a member of the same already in 1991, the first term of the new Polish parliament after the changes in 1989. Today he is not only a member of the parliament but also the head of the Parliamentary Foreign Affairs Committee, somebody who I believe does everything that he can to throw cold water on emotions as they arise because of different things that are happening today between Russia and Estonia, for example. So without taking up any more of your time, let me ask, please, Mr. Meckel to make his remarks. Thank you.
Dear Mr. Mitzgiel, dear Pavel, Mr. General Consul, dear friends, I am happy that you invited me to have some remarks about the German-Polish relations today, and that's connected with the European question. All the time during the last more than 15 years. It's exactly 15 years ago that I had another conference here in New York about the German-Polish relations that was run by the Friedrich Ebert Foundation. Some of you will know Mr. Dieter Detke. And I was together here with your ambassador, the Polish ambassador in the United States, and he, in that time, was the first time in the United States, Janus Schreiter. And we had together here a discussion about that relationship in the European framework. It was a very short time after all that breaks and a new beginning in Europe. And if I look back to that time and the discussions of that, so I can tell you that all what was discussed in that time, it was the European integration and the question of security for Poland. All that is fulfilled in a very short time, I would say so. And so I think if we see the situation between Germany and Poland, I would say that in German die Stimmung ist besser als die Lage. Die Stimmung ist schlechter als die Lage. The feeling is worse than the facts are. And I'm very sure that exactly that's the case. If I see the relationship and the contacts between German and Polish society, if I see the cultural and economic contacts and cooperation, if I see the investments from Germany in Poland, but vice versa, more and more it's vice versa, it's a growing Polish investment in Germany and Western Europe. If I see the partnerships between towns and cities, it's a marvelous success which has happened during the last 1.5 decades. And if you see the polls, what the population is thinking about each other, then it's a marvelous success too. A great majority in Poland is thinking about Germany in a good way, much better than some years ago. And it's a similar way for Europe. The feeling and the positions towards Europe are much better than 3, 4, 5 years ago, including, for instance, the European Constitution, if you see the population. That's clear that there's an asymmetry between Germany and Poland in dealing to each other and the awareness to each other. But I would say that asymmetry has a basis of equality, because both Germans and Polish people are looking west. But the difference is, if the Polish population is looking west, it's looking towards Germany. If the German population is doing the same, they show the back to the Polish people. From that, we have set asymmetries and some difficulties in our population. The readiness, for instance, to learn the language, the readiness to visit the other country, and all these things. If you see that integration process, which was the most important aim of all governments in the 90s, it was clear that this way was very much connected with Germany. And you mentioned it in the beginning, that Germany was very much engaged in that support for Poland in that integration process. So I think that we can look back. It's really a success story which happened between Germany and Poland during the last 1.5 decade. If you look to that new situation, that Poland is member of NATO, not only but also member of EU, then it's a question, what is the self-understanding in Poland of their own role in Europe? As the chairman of the German-Polish parliamentary group, we tried, I think it was in 2000, 2001, during that negotiation process, we tried, and we succeeded, to make a common paper, the Polish-German parliamentary group and the German-Polish one, about the future of Europe and about their own role there. All these issues which are dealt in the European Constitution, we discussed in that time, and it was not so easy to concentrate to that question, because usually the Polish colleagues wanted to talk about the negotiation process and not the conditions of negotiations process and all these difficulties in that way. But it was very difficult in the beginning to abstract from that, to say, let's talk about if you are in. What do you want if you are in? Which role you would like to play? And I think that's a not so easy question if you are in such a community which has their own roles, and the most of them are unwritten rules. Because for many issues you need consensus. And the question of the relationship of national interests and the interest of the common process of Europe. It's not so easy to describe it, and it's not so easy to solve that in the concrete situation. And so I think it was and it is not astonishing that after 2004 there were some difficulties, especially with that role. And not only in 2004, but beginning during the years before. You remember the difficulties to find a common position in the question of the Iraq war. And all that's a synonym for the letter of the eight. That was a split of Europe some days after European countries found a common position. And after that it was split in a short time. The other question in the beginning of this decade, the discussion about the European security and defense policy. If I see the last years after 1999, when we made the decision on the Cologne summit to begin with that process, we had a very skeptical US administration in the beginning with Clinton. Then they understood after a time, but with Bush it began again to be against and to fight against that. We know that it has changed until now, but the Polish position was very much connected with the American position in that time. And the question, what is the role of NATO and what is the role of European Union in security matters? If we see the question of European Union towards East, we will have a discussion tomorrow about that. And so I think it's a mixture of experience. In some of that issues, we have a Polish position which tries to find a new way, an own way, and sometimes against other, for instance, Germany, other countries, or in others, to find and to look for community and to look for alliance for that. That's especially the case if you see the policy towards East. I think that it was a very important event when we had the Orange Revolution in Ukraine, that the Polish president was there as a representative of European Union. It was his own understanding, and it was accepted of other European countries, especially Germany. And so I think that is a growing understanding that we have to have a common European position towards East, which is not so easy as we know. If we see the situation in Belarus, Poland is very much engaged in that process, but in that double process. On the one hand, not to exclude Belarus, but on the other hand, to support a change, and especially to support civil society and the opposition. And I think that's important, and we try to do it together. But we together see that European Union has good proclamations in that field, but very little really support. And so we had the idea, and we are working for that, for instance, to establish a European democracy foundation, which in my view really would a good answer for that. Until now, we didn't succeed with that. And we have the question of constitution. We know the difficulties, and the difficulties come from the German support in Nizza. We sometimes have some doubt if it was right to support Poland in that situation, because in that situation it seemed to us very important to have the similar a better voting situation for Poland. But if you see the general situation in Europe, it's a difficulty. And so we Germans think, and not only we, that with a double voting, it's a more just situation. On the one hand, to have the population, on the other hand, to have states. And so little states have the right to take part, but it is on the other hand clear that states with a large and a big population can't be overvoted because it's not possible to have a vote with all the little states and the larger one and the more financial stronger one have to pay. And so I think that double voting for Europe is really the best way, and we have to discuss it. Today is the Constitution Day in Poland. And I would say in that time, 3rd of May, that was the first written European constitution with the separation of the powers. In that time, Poland was on the top of the European process in the constitutional way. And I would wish that Poland is going there again. That would be really a fine development. I see that we have today really some difficulties in that European issue, not only because of some real difficult questions, but also because of a not so clear Polish position about their own role in Europe. And I think that would be an important issue to discuss tomorrow and during the next time. I think that sometimes if I talk with politicians from the different parties, sometimes in Germany people ask me why, if the government is not so much in favor of that European process of integration, why there is no Polish opposition taking that issue and define themselves as a clear European Polish party. But that's not the case. If you see PiS, on the one hand, if you see Platforma, Rokita was it in the beginning who said Nizza or the dead. And so that process is not only a process of one party, it's a process in Poland at all. I will come to shorten it, come to Russia. I think that in Europe at all, there is not much awareness about the Polish experience with Russia, and not only with Russia, but also with the situation in between. Exactly that's a deep experience in Poland, and nobody who will try to understand Poland has to forget it. And that's why it has to be remembered. And it's not only Poland. If you see the situation of the Baltic states, if you see also Belarus and other states in that former European eastern border and Russia, there's a field of history which Western Europe is not really aware. And so it could happen that that event of the 60th anniversary of the end of the Second World War was shaped in that way as we experienced. And I think there will be a majority in that room not only to say that must not happen again. We have to deal with that history in another way than what happened in May 2005 in Moscow under the line of Putin. But it's a question for all of us. It's not only the question for Poland, it's a question of European Union. And I think European Union's identity is very much linked with that. And we have to shape that and to prepare that. I will come back to that again. I think that from that background, it is understandable. The discussion in Poland, the question with the Baltic Sea Pipeline between Russia and Germany and the European Union. It's one of the European energy lines. And in the end, it is clear it will be built. But the communication of Chancellor Schroeder in that way was a catastrophe, because it was not really consulted and discussed before. And so I think that's one of the difficulties. The other thing is, and was, not to reject the participation in the Iraq war. In my view, that was right. But the question was in which way that was celebrated between Germany, France, and Russia. And that so-called, I would call it a little bit worse, so-called X situation. So that middle powers of the European Union, together with Russia, that brought some difficult feeling in Poland. But the problem was, and is in my view, that today, when Poland is a member of European Union, is not that Poland was not in the effect, was not demanding a common European position towards Russia. Now we try to do it. But it created in Poland feelings against European Union, because European Union is led by France and Germany. And that's why we don't like it. But in my view, it's a very important issue for the future, that European Union in such important issues has to shape a common position towards Russia. And I think we are on the good way. If you see the Russian restrictions with meat from Poland. In the beginning, it was difficult, that behavior of the Commission. But I think for a long time, it's very clear that there's European solidarity with Poland in that field. Raising the last point of that European issues, the question of missile defense. I'm coming now from Washington, talking about that in the State Department and with in the Congress and Senate. And I think that we had got, during the last weeks, a marvelous communication offensive of the United States towards Russia. And I think that was very good. That visit of Gates to Moscow was a very important visit, and that he offered cooperation in that field. And it was very clear for them, and if you see the concrete details, it's clear that what has to be stationed in Poland in that planning is nothing against Russia. But the feeling in Russia, the feeling in Poland, seems me to be that there's a discussion, there's no decision until now, and we will listen and hear what the position are or will be. But it seems to be that the background for supporting that United States is more Russia than Iran. My feeling is that in Poland there's no clear feeling to be threatened by Iran. There's more feeling to be threatened by Russia. And so it could be an interesting difficulty that the United States is trying to convince European countries, including Russia, that is only against that threatening Iran And in the same time, especially in Poland, there's a feeling we have to do it in order to be more secure from Russia, from possible threats from Russia. And on the other hand, I think the background could be that there's a feeling in Poland that it's needed a special relationship to the United States to get a more secure situation. And if that's right, and that would be interesting to talk about, if that's right, then it would be a problem. Because if that would be right, then it would mean that membership in NATO is not enough. And that could create difficulties in NATO with regions of different security, and that could be a problem. And so I think we have some questions to discuss in that. I will finish with a question of the so-called, how to say it, Geschichtspolitik, history policy, or what? Historical what? Historical policy. Okay. In the title of that conference, here is the question Polish-German Reconciliation. Looking back, it was mentioned that Kwasniewski said it's a boring situation between Germany because all things are so good. We remember that some journalists in the end of the 90s said and spoke about, I don't know how to say it in English, Versöhnungskitsch. Can you translate? I don't know it. What? Reconciliation kitsch. Oh, so easy. Okay. But now we are far away from that. We are far away. In the 90s, in the end of the 90s, 10 years ago, I experienced a conference in Warsaw about the question of expulsion. And it was astonishing, not only for me, but also, for instance, for the Czech ambassador in Warsaw. He took part in the conference and about that discussion, that open discussion about that, and he said afterwards that he couldn't imagine that this open kind of dealing with that past was possible. Today, we are far away from that. But the question is why? One important reason is that plan of the Association of Expelled People Association in Germany with Erika Steinbach. They planned in the end of the 90s and from the end of the 90s to establish a so-called Center Against Expulsions in Berlin. This was in the time of the red-green government when we cut some budget for that association. And as we see the situation of that association, the people are going older and older, to be older and older, and the question is, what will be the future? And to find a new sense for them seemed to me one of the most important backgrounds for Erika Steinbach. And the red-green government was against that plan. I myself, I'm very much in favor of dealing with past, that we never have and must not push away our own past. We have to deal with to win the future. I'm convinced about that. But that includes the expulsion question too. I grew up in the eastern part of Germany, and there are many of that people with that experience. They never could talk about that and deal with that, and that's why I think that history has to be dealt with, not only in the private, but also in the public way. But the question was and is, in which way it has to be done. And so we had a strong debate during the last 5 years. I can't repeat it in detailed way. I made the proposal to do it in a European conversation and communication together and to build and to shape a common project. Adam Michnik, Adam Grzemiński and others supported it, but it was not, it didn't come to the end. Then we had the situation of election in Poland and Germany. And so we said in Germany, in the Grand Coalition, because the Christian Democrats were much in favor of such a center, and we as Social Democrats against. And so we made a compromise. We made a compromise to establish in Berlin a so-called sichtbares Zeichen, a seeable signal, a sign for that. And nobody in that time knew what could it mean. Now we have a discussion there, and the proposal is, and of that what was very important to say, let's do it in Berlin. That was the point in which the Christian Democrats won in that coalition negotiations. We won in that point that we said we will never do it without communication with the neighbors. And we don't, with us, such a center will not be possible. And so we can only do it together. And so the discussion continued. It is continuing, but I think we are in a good discussion now. It's clear now that the basis of that what will happen will be an exhibition from the Haus der Geschichte, which was showed in Bonn, in Berlin, and Leipzig. We will have, during the next weeks or months, an international workshop with historians from Poland, Czech Republic, and other international countries, to judge about that concrete exhibition, to say what has to be changed in our view, what has to be enlarged, in which way it has to be Europeanized. Such discussion will take place, and from that basis it's planned to give that changed, in the end, changed exhibition a place in Berlin. That is a plan we have now. Last point is the question of the so-called network solidarity and remembrance and solidarity. That was an initiative to talk in the cross-border way, together with our neighbors, about historian issues. The beginning was a discussion about expulsion, but if you see the text, it's the question of dealing with the 20th century at all. And I really think that it would be a very important, it is a very important project which could help us in many fields of discussion about that historical policy. I mentioned the question of the end of the Second World War. I take, for instance, I think that would be a wonderful project to deal with what I would call the European heritage of freedom beyond the Iron Curtain. If we see and we don't know each other enough, who in Germany knows about the uprising of in '56 in Poznan? Almost nobody. Who in Poland is really knowing about the uprising in '53 in Germany? Many are thinking that were only some people in Berlin, the Karl Marx Allee, but in the end it was more than 1 million in more than 700 cities and villages. And all these things, we can add many things to that. I think it is a European challenge that we together write down and research as a part of European freedom heritage, that European freedom heritage beyond the Iron Curtain. I think that's a very important project. We have to do it together. And with that proposal, I will come to an end because I think it's too long. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Meckel. Mr. Zaleski.
Your Excellencies, dear Mr. Chairman of the Kościuszko Foundation in the United States, dear Janek, dear Markus, all of you distinguished guests. I would like, first of all, thank you very much for organizing this conference, which is, in my opinion, about a very exciting topic and very important for Europe. It deserves higher attention because of the recent development in German-Polish, Polish-German relations, as well as because of its importance for the future of the EU. I would like to concentrate on some important points connected also with the reconciliation process between Germany and Poland, Poland and Germany. And then I will try to answer some points Markus has just raised during his introductory speech. First of all, I would like to start with an important in such situation statement that looking at history, Polish-German, German-Polish relations have never been so good as today. Poland and Germany are in the same military and political alliance, NATO. We are in the same political, economic institution, which is the EU, and that is a very important framework for our relations. It, of course, doesn't mean that there are no problems and that there are no question points. But I think that it is quite normal, especially in Central Europe, the region with such a difficult and, in many respects, painful history. After 1989, after the solidarity movement in Poland, when due to its activity, Poland regained independence and it opened the process of liberalization or liberating of the Central European countries, it was also the starting point for unification process in Germany. The time for the right reconciliation between Poles and Germans came. Of course, we do remember this, what I can name as a reconciliation kitsch between official Eastern Germany government and Polish communist government starting from the 50s. But of course, Markus and we know exactly that it was not the real reconciliation. The time for that came after 1989. And that was the time when the basic treaty framework had been created, and the time when the both governments decided to start the policy of which was focused on Poland's integration into the transatlantic and European structures. By the way, it was one of the most successful projects which had been executed between Poles and Germans. But of course, to understand what is the current level of reconciliation, we should go back to 1989 and to the situation in the both countries. First, Poland. Poland was a country where the communist government, as a matter of fact, did not create any frameworks for reconciliations with any neighbors. As a matter of fact, the process of reconciliation, the actual reconciliation, started by different independent institutions or underground civil societies representatives. The most important was the church, Catholic Church, with this friendly move towards Germans. We are forgiving you, and please forgive us. Everybody remembers that, and it was extremely important to start the process after 1989. But on the Polish side, we still expected much far-going openness from Germans, much far-going openness for understanding of our history, of our position, of our problems, of our pain as well. Then the German side. Germany went through very successfully the process of reconciliation with France. And it went through the process of democratization. And in the beginning of the 90s, Germans felt themselves quite confident and felt themselves as a nation which has sufficiently changed its history. Of course, changed its attitude to democracy, changed its attitude to cooperation with the neighbors. That is what I meant. And of course, it created the asymmetric situation when Poles expected much more from Germans, and they felt that Germany was still the country which had a kind of a debt towards its, not only Poland, but also eastern neighbors. Germans, in my opinion, felt that, as a matter of fact, this reconciliation and integration into democratic societies has been finished. So the level, the temperature, I would say, the temperature of mutual expectations, the temperatures were different. And today, we have some consequences of this situation. Marcus mentioned that during last years, we were managed to establish a lot of very positive, very friendly relations, for example, between the cities. That is the truth. But compare 600 agreements between Polish and German cities with much more thousands of respective agreements between German and French cities. That is totally asymmetric. Marcus is right, saying that Germans are looking westward. It means they are looking to France. France is the natural partner, natural neighbor for a lot of Germans. Poland is not known. Talking to many Germans, mainly coming from the Western Germany, who came to Berlin and live in Berlin right now. Poland, for them, is a totally not known country. Even if the border between Poland and Germany is 60 kilometers from Berlin, something like that. So they have never been to Poland. They can travel a lot of kilometers to France, but they have never been to Poland yet. So it is very important to understand the situation between our two nations. So that is a kind of a background. Then coming to the process of the problem of understanding of responsibility. In my opinion, that is the key difference between Poles and Germans, the key difference which creates a lot of troubles. Poles treat responsibility for history, for example, what happened in Second World War, as a collective one, as a responsibility of the nation as a whole. Germans, this is my perceiveness, treats responsibility as an issue of individuals. And this difference is a key, for example, for the problem of expelled Germany, because started Second World War is a problem of the state. My family had nothing to do with that. Therefore, we should not pay for it. And this is extremely important to understand. And of course, this attitude is not understood by Poles, and Poles do not agree with this kind of argumentation. But of course, we have to know it. So I think that paradoxically, Polish membership to the EU created some new problems in our relations, because it opened the floor, it opened the room for German expelled people claims to our country. Because before our membership, for many Germans, it seemed useless. It's useless to raise these claims. So they, as a matter of fact, started to be announced just around 2004. So it is very clear coincidence. Then the problem of the Polish minority in Germany. That is something also very important, because there is a lot of Poles living in Germany, some from 3 or 4 generations. That is immigration from Wielkopolska region to, for example, North Rhine in the end of 19th century. There are also a lot of Poles living there who came just recently. And when we compare the situation, the position of the both minorities in the respective countries, we can see very high asymmetric. And it is also something important for the Polish government to raise the standards for the Polish minority, which, by the way, is not officially recognized by the German state. The last important thing, the relations with Russia. I think that it is the other key issue, because in last years, and it did not happen, it had not started after last elections in Poland. This is a process which started to be visible in 2000, 2001, 2002. On one hand side, we saw, and that is a Polish perspective. I know that my German friends question its not importance, but its validity. But our perceiveness is that that time in Germany, some politicians, some historians, just making the different accents on the history, started to, in some way, reinterpret the history. Because if we concentrate our interests on what happened to Germans in 1944, 1945, and it was horrible, bombing of Berlin or Dresden or many, many other cities, German cities. We can understand also the expulsion of German citizens because a lot of Poles were expelled as well. So if we concentrate our historical researches and public debate on these issues, we create the balance between who was guilty and who was victim. In our perceiveness, there is no balance. And that is still something vital in Poland and important to understand. And this process has been associated with the other process, with the process of closer relations with Russia. And of course, you can imagine, knowing the Polish history, that this kind of cooperation over our heads always creates at least questions, many doubts, and that is something what we do fear the most. And of course, we understand that at the moment we are acting in completely different frameworks, that at the moment the German government is a fully democratic government and the German society is a democratic society. But still, this remembrance from the past are important for our historical and political understanding and, I would say, imagination. That is about Polish-German relations. But Markus is absolutely right, saying that these relations are crucial for the future of the EU. I'm just checking how much time do I have. I think that it's not too much. So briefly, in my opinion, Polish-German cooperation has the same importance for the future of the EU as German-French cooperation had for the creation, for the foundation of the EU. Because Poland, being the biggest Eastern European country, new member of the EU, has a special responsibility, also has a special ability to represent the interests of this part of Europe in the process of unification of Europe as a whole. I mean, this Polish-German cooperation is crucial for fulfilling the economic and social unification of the continent. What is a marvelous target? Remembering that these divisions, these economic, social divisions in Europe started in Middle Ages. So the project we have now to fulfill is just to overcome the history, extremely long time of history in very short frame of time. And that is the crucial thing. And I think when Markus asked for the Polish understanding of its role, of the Poland's role in the EU, that is one of the answers. Not only the first one. The other answer is that understanding the problems of security in Central Eastern Europe, this is also something what Markus has mentioned very well. We can put a lot into the common European security, especially maintaining and calling for maintenance of for maintaining of strong transatlantic relations. And I'm very happy with the current German government policy, which has been changed after the elections. The policy just in favor of transatlantic relations, in favor of relations with the United States. Because, in my opinion, what we all need in Europe is just to have the United States strongly in Europe, strongly interested in Europe. And so these are the two important roles. And the third is to spread awareness for the whole EU of the importance of Eastern European countries which at the moment do not belong to the EU, like Ukraine, like Belarus, like Moldova, like Georgia. And that is also something what Markus has mentioned. I'm just trying to answer the most important questions. There is one very hot issue which is discussed in Poland and in Germany right now, and in the States as well, I guess. I mean the anti-missile shield. And Markus mentioned something important. He said that Poland expects something more in the relations with the United States than the rest of the NATO countries. What is danger, as far as I understood Markus? Because it could create the different security standards. Was I right just summarizing your remark? Well, so first, it is a very important argument which I try to answer in Germany. First, it was not Poland who started this kind of policy. If Poland had started, it was Germany with the Nord Stream pipeline. Because this Nord Stream pipeline creates, evidently, the double standards of security in energy. This is something we always discuss. But if we are talking about the Polish-American relations and strengthening our position, I would like to say that everything we expect is in the frames of NATO, not outside NATO. This is first. Second, I'd like to say that considering the current situation, the current policy, there are different standards of security within the NATO countries. And I would like to say that Germany has one of the strongest security standards, having American bases on its soil. And if we also go more detailedly, I wouldn't like to do it right now, but if we go more detailedly into the contingency plannings, what is important? I would like to say that still there is a lot to be done to strengthen not Polish security, but European security. Because, in my opinion, this closer relations and closer American engagement into Europe is not only important for Poland, it's mostly important for Estonians, for Latvians, for Lithuanians, especially if we are following the relations of these countries today with Russia. So I do believe that finally we will find the agreement, finally we will find the way to create very important Polish-German project for Europe. Thank you.
Thank you both, gentlemen. Rather than do what academics usually do, which is now to engage in a long discussion, we'll be doing this all day tomorrow. I suggest that we use the time that we have to go downstairs and have a glass of wine and talk to our speakers individually. So I would invite you to lead the way. Thank you very much.